All right. Hi everyone. Welcome back. Well, welcome back to all those who are tuning in again for the second session. And for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. My name is Andreena. And today also we are going to delve into the world of cell together. Okay. Now, before we start today's session where we understand plant cell and animal cell, we are going to do a very quick revision of what we did in the first session. Okay. So everybody who is tuning in for the first time will be able to understand this session better. Alright, and everybody who was there for the first session will be able to understand the session even more better by revising it. Okay, so let's get into it. So before revising, what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick yes and no activity. If you're watching this later, then you can always pause and guess before you hear me say the correct answer. Alright, so let's go with the first slide. Alright, the first one says not all living organisms are made up of cell. Alright, not all living organisms are made up of cell. Well, do you think it's correct or do you think it's not correct? Alright, I feel it's not correct. We learned that all living organisms are in fact made up of cell. All living organisms including plants, animals and us. Alright, so let's look at the second one. Organisms with multiple cells are called unicellular organisms. Something sounds a little bit off about it. Let's read it again. Organisms with multiple cells are called unicellular organisms. As far as I know, uni means one, right? So this is, of course, incorrect. So it's a no. Organisms with a single cell are known as unicellular organisms. Let's look at the third one together. Organisms with more than one cell are called multicellular organisms. Now, this one makes more sense, right? It's not just one cell that we're talking about more than one cell. So it's a multicellular organism. Perfect. So this one is a yes, right? The second last one says human cells are round, spherical or elongated in shape. All right. Human cells which are found inside our body or on our body are round, spherical or elongated in shape. Well, this is in fact correct. Alright, perfect. So this is a yes. The last one is a little bit tricky like we saw in the first session. A shark has bigger cells than human being. So the idea here is that since the shark is bigger, it will have bigger cells. Okay, but that is not really true. Just because an organism is bigger does not mean that the organism will have bigger cells, right? So this one is a no, right? This one is red. Alright, now that we have done a quick revision of what we did in the first session, let's get into understanding plant cell a little bit more. Before we do the plant cell, let's understand animal cell. Alright, then we'll go into the plant cell because then we'll do a comparison between both. Okay, so let's deep dive into animal cell. Right? Okay, so for animal cell, we're going to first explore the main three components of animal cell. Okay, the first component is cell/plasma membrane, right? The second is cell organelles and the third is cytoplasm. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark it on the screen so it becomes easier to understand what is what, and then we're going to understand what do these components actually do for the cell. All right, and in fact for us. Perfect. All right, so this is our cell or plasma membrane. All of these are cell organelles and inside there is cytoplasm. Alright, so let's understand what does a cell or a plasma membrane actually do. Can we see that the yellow outline, which is the cell or the plasma membrane, helps to keep the cell together, helps to keep the cell in shape. Alright, it helps to keep the cell in shape, but other than keeping it in shape, it also helps to differentiate it from its surroundings and other cells. Alright, it creates a differentiating between its surroundings, right, and inside the cell. And also if there are other cells around this cell, it will also create a differentiation between that. Alright, now cell membrane or the plasma membrane has a very special quality. Cell membrane, hi Deepak, hi, thank you so much for joining us. So cell membrane or plasma membrane has a very special quality. It is very porous in nature. When I say cell membrane or plasma membrane is porous, it basically means it has a lot of tiny holes in it, okay, through which nutrients can pass. Alright, so nutrients can go inside or nutrients can go outside. Alright, so 3 things very important that you have to remember about cell membrane or plasma membrane. They help to keep the shape of the cell. They help to absorb nutrients from its surroundings. And third, it helps to differentiate the cell from its surroundings and other cells. Alright, let's try to understand cell organelles. Right? It sounds a little complicated, but it's actually not complicated at all. Alright, everything that you see inside the cell are called cell organelles. Alright, cell organelles are nothing but parts of the cell. Alright, so everything that you see here, the pink dots, the big blue dot and the green dot, all of them are parts of the cell. Alright, let's try to understand cytoplasm a little bit more. This word also sounds a little bit more, like a little bit difficult, but it's not. Okay, so inside every cell, there is a jelly-like structure. Alright, and it's not just for animal cell, but also in plant cell. Okay, you have a jelly-like structure which is called cytoplasm. Okay, and all the cell organelles, which are basically parts of the cell, are embedded in the cytoplasm. Perfect. Now that we have understood the 3 most important components of the animal cell, let's try to understand another very important component. Okay, so in the cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like structure, we have a very important component of the cell. Alright, it's called the nucleus. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark again what is what. Okay, nucleus. You see this blue dot? Well, that's nucleus. You know, like our body has a brain, we have a brain and a heart. Nucleus is basically like the brain of the cell. It takes a lot of important decisions for the cell. Okay, perfect. Now nucleus is in the cytoplasm, right? And nucleus is embedded in the cytoplasm. But nucleus is a little bit, different from the cytoplasm, or it's separated by the cytoplasm with the help of a membrane, and it's called nucleus membrane. Alright, so outside it there is a membrane and it's called a nucleus membrane. It does something very similar what a cell membrane or a plasma membrane does. Alright, it protects the nucleus from the cytoplasm, alright, or separates it from the cytoplasm. Perfect. Now let's try to understand what exactly is this. Alright, so if we take a microscope and try to see the nucleus, we'll see a lot of small round structures inside the nucleus. Alright, so something like this. Don't mind the bad drawing. So a very small round structures inside the cell or inside the nucleus. Okay, these are called nucleolus. Alright, they are a part of the nucleus which help the nucleus to perform better. Okay, perfect. Now nucleus doesn't just contain nucleolus, it also contains 2 very important elements. Okay, it contains chromosomes, and chromosomes in turn contains genes. Alright, now I'm pretty sure you're wondering what is genes and what is chromosomes, right? Have you ever wondered about when you go to a party and somebody comes to you and they say, oh, you look just like your mother, or your hair looks just like your father? Well, those are called hereditary characteristics. Okay, that is something that you get from your parents when you are born, right? And guess who is responsible for transferring all of these important characteristics from your parents to you, right? Genes are. Exactly. So you need chromosomes and genes to pass on all of that information. Alright, made up of which type of tissue? Okay, we'll come back to that in a little bit. Alright, now let's understand what is protoplasm. Alright, now we already know what are cell organelles, right? Everything that is inside the cell. Now when you add a cell wall or a cell membrane to it, it becomes protoplasm. So imagine all the cell organelles which are inside the cell and a cell membrane or plasma membrane. It makes up the protoplasm. Okay, so everything, if I can manage, I would call it protoplasm. Alright, perfect. Okay, now what we're going to do is, I'm going to show you a blank screen. Alright, now here you can pause the video or take a screenshot of the video and do it yourself, where you can mark and revise quickly everything that you've learned. Alright, right now we're going to do it together. Perfect. So let's do that. Alright, let's understand what was the first thing that we learned about. All right, we learned about all right, we learned about a cell membrane or a plasma membrane. All right, what was the second thing that we learned about? We learned about cell organelles, right? Everything that is inside the cell. All right, so I'm going to do that and then all right, then we learned about a jelly-like structure which is present inside the cell. Okay, that structure is called cytoplasm. So I'll name it here. Perfect. Now we learned that this is called the nucleus, which is basically like the brain of the cell. Okay, just like we have a brain in our body, cells have nucleus. Now, nucleus contains a lot of important information, but it also contains nucleolus, chromosomes, and chromosomes contain genes. All right. Chromosomes contains genes. All right. Perfect. Now, do you remember the word that we used for when we include the cell organelles and the cell membrane and the plasma membrane? Well, that's called protoplasm. I'm going to write it here. Perfect. All right. So now we know the different parts of animal cell and what do they actually do for the cell. Now let's try to understand how different is a plant cell from an animal cell. All right. For that, we'll have to understand what are the parts which are present in plant cell which are not present in animal cell. Now let's take a look into that. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to see a few components which are present in plant cell and not in animal cell. All right, perfect. Let's see. Oh, okay, sorry for that. Let's okay. All right. Now, plant cell have an extra layer of protection. Okay, then that is called the cell wall. Right. Now, you will be wondering what is the difference between cell wall and a cell membrane or a plasma membrane mesh. All right, there is a very tiny minute difference. Like animal cells have plasma membrane and cell membrane, right? We have that only one protection around the cell. For plant cells, we have two protection layers. We have cell membrane and plasma membrane, which is inside. So it would be somewhere here, right? But outside we have a cell wall. Now what does the cell wall do for the plant cell? It basically gives it a lot more strength and support. All right, that's all it does. It gives a lot of strength and support, and it's semi-permeable, which basically means while the cell membrane or the plasma membrane will allow a lot more to pass through it, cell wall only allows selective materials. It doesn't allow everything to pass through it. All right, so it's semi-permeable. Perfect. We don't have a cell wall in animal cells. So our cells will not have a cell wall. Only plant cells tend to have cell walls. Okay, now here, vacuoles. Now vacuoles are very special, all right, especially in a plant cell because they serve a very important purpose. Vacuoles are basically empty structures in a cell, all right. Now what do plants use it for is basically storing all the, all of the waste material if they have any or extra food that they have, all right. Now that is what a vacuole is used for. Now, animal cells also tend to have vacuoles, but they usually tend to be very small in size. In plant cells, they take up a lot of space in the cell. All right, perfect. Now, these are very special. Okay, this is something that's not present in animal cells at all. Now, we all know that plants are green in color, right? Most of the time, they are green in color. Whenever we look around us, we see trees, we see bushes, we see flowers. All of them tend to be green, especially the stem. Right? Now, what gives plants their green color? Now there is a pigment called chlorophyll. There's a pigment called chlorophyll which gives plants their green color, right? Now in the plant cell, where exactly is chlorophyll stored? Chlorophyll is actually stored in a structure called plastids. Alright, it's called plastids. Now plastids store not only chlorophyll. Now chlorophyll is a pigment which gives, here's the catch, there is a catch, right? Now chlorophyll is a pigment which gives green color to the plants, right? But sometimes, have you seen those plants which have yellow color leaves or sometimes red color leaves even? So there is a different pigment present in the plastids, right? But when plastids only specifically have chlorophyll, it's called a chloroplast. So all these tiny green structures that you see here are chloroplasts. They contain the pigment, they contain a green pigment, chlorophyll, which gives green color to the plant. Alright, so we've already seen that there are few things which are not there in animal cell but are present in plant cell. So cell wall, vacuoles, chlorophyll, plastids and chloroplasts, right? This is something that are present, this is present in animal cell. That's it. Vacuoles are present, but they again are very, very small in size. What we're going to do here in the next slide is we are going to mark everything that we have learned about the plant cell. Okay, so let's quickly revise everything that we've learned about the plant cell which is not present in the animal cell. Okay, we have heard we know that plant cell have a cell wall. Alright, now all you have to remember is it's an extra layer of protection that it has other than the plasma membrane or the cell membrane that even animal cells have. Alright, it provides a lot of strength and support to the plant cell. We have vacuoles. We have vacuoles. Vacuoles are empty structures in the cell which plants use to store extra food or we use it as basically the storage bin. Like, you know, at home we have that one room where we keep everything. That's basically what function the vacuoles perform in a plant cell. Alright. These are called chloroplasts. Now chloroplasts are nothing but plastids which have chlorophyll in them. And what is chlorophyll? Chlorophyll is basically the green pigment which gives plants its green color. Alright, that's all you have to remember. Perfect. Okay, now when I was a biology student, no matter which class I was in, I always got one thing wrong. I always got the names wrong. I always got the spelling wrong, and I think that's a mistake that a lot of us tend to make, right? So what we're going to do is quickly revise all the vocabulary that we have learned in the session till now. Alright, so there are a few, you can see there are words but there are also blanks. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a hint, alright, and then we're going to solve this together. Right now what you can do is you can freeze the screen yourself and try to answer it yourself, or you can watch me do it on the board right now. Okay, now the hint for the first one is something that helps to pass on hereditary information, right? Remember the example that I gave you about when you go to a party and somebody asks you or somebody tells you, oh, you look just like your father, you have beautiful hair like your mother, right? So what is the spelling, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is quickly write, but what I would advise right now is that you freeze the screen and try to do it yourself, because we tend to get spellings wrong, awfully wrong at times. Alright, genes which are present in chromosomes, and chromosomes which are present in the nucleus. Alright, perfect. Now the hint for the second one that I can give you is that it contains the green pigment called chlorophyll, or any pigment which gives plant its color. Okay, it starts with the P. Plastids. Alright, plastids. And when plastids only contain chlorophyll, we call them chloroplasts. Alright, let's go to the next one. Okay, now what is the pigment that gives plants its green color? Very simple. All right, this one I'm going to leave for you to solve. Okay, now remember when I said that cell organelles, right, combined with a cell wall or combined with cell membrane and plasma membrane is called dash, right? This is what you have to write here. So I can tell you it's protoplasm, right? Let's look at the second last one. Now this is present in both plant cells and animal cells. Alright, but in animal cells it's a little bit smaller as compared to plant cells. Plant cells use it as a storage bin. They store their extra food, store a lot of, waste material in them, right? Okay, last one, the spelling that I always got wrong when I was in school, right? It's called the brain of the cell. It takes a lot of essential decisions. Perfect. Now I've solved the first two for you and the third one or the fourth one, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to solve the rest of them yourself, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to quickly revise up the session before we go for the day. All right, and meet you tomorrow again. All right, now the first thing that we learned about was the cell membrane or the plasma membrane, right? It does three very important things. It helps to keep the cell in shape, right? It protects it from its surroundings and other cells. And third, it helps to keep the cell organelles all together. Like cell organelles are nothing but the parts of the cell. All right. Cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the jelly-like structure that's present inside the cell. Okay. Next is nucleus. Nucleus is basically the brain of the cell. All right. It takes a lot of important decisions. Fine. Alright, now nucleus is separated by the cytoplasm through a membrane. Alright, it's called a nucleus membrane. Alright, so there are two different membranes which are there, which is cell membrane, plasma membrane or nucleus membrane. Perfect. Now again, if you look using a microscope in a nucleus, we'll see a lot of small round structures, right? These small round structures are called nucleolus, right? They're called nucleolus. Now other than the nucleolus, nucleus also contains very important information about heredity, right? It contains chromosomes, which contains genes, which is very important for important heredity characters to be passed on from one generation to another. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay, let's quickly revise what we learned about plant cell. All right, all the empty structures, there are a lot of empty structures inside the plant cell which are called vacuoles. All right, plants get their green color through a pigment called chlorophyll. Now plastids are basically pigment containing structures in the cell, right? So when a plastid contains chlorophyll only, it's called a chloroplast. All right, very easy to remember. The spellings are a little bit tricky, which is something that you will have to work with, right? But I think you can do it. And if you have any issues, then you can always write in the live chat or after you watch the video, anything that suits you. Well, that is, Sabjeet Kaur, hi. Thank you for joining us. It's a little bit late, but you'll be able to, recap the video and see it for yourself. I hope you liked today's session. Well, I hope to see you again for tomorrow, in which we're going to finally end the session by comparing plant cells with animal cells. All right. Well, that is it for today. And thank you so much for joining. I will see you in the next class. Bye.